Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. This microphone might be too close. I feel like I'm yelling. I hope you all had a good weekend. I kind of did the same thing I did last weekend. Went down south, kind of took some Lysol wipes with me this time, and yeah, I was planning on having a special guest on the show to do an episode, but things kind of got a little busy as I was down south. Ended up getting a car like I was supposed to last weekend, so that's the bonus of that. So it wasn't a wasted trip, and um, yeah, it kind of worked out. I rented a car for a week from down south, and I was going to, and I keep saying down south, I mean San Francisco. I'm about 6 hours from the Bay Area. It was actually Hayward, the area that I rented the car from, but rented the car and I was planning on just dropping it off where I live, but there was like $130 one-way fee or something like that. So I ended up just driving it back down, and on the way down, or as I was down there, I was going to have the guest on the show and return the car and just kind of have that be one big thing. But ended up getting another car while I was down there, so it kind of just worked out. And yeah, but expect there to be guests coming on the shows as this show progresses, as I said last episode, because yeah, I mean, just more of those starting to get lined up. So expect that, and I will try to give you a heads up if I'm expecting someone next week, so you can anticipate that. But for the most part, it may just be like spur of the moment, so you may just have to like listen in, or I may post on one of the social media pages about having a special guest on for the upcoming episode or whatever it may be. But I will keep you abreast of that situation. Um, yeah, so that was basically my weekend. It kind of freaked me out. I got back on Sunday night and I didn't realize that daylight savings had happened. So the next day I woke up, and it was kind of crazy because I woke up at like 8:30 or so, and I mean usually I'm waking up like around 7:30, like 7:30, and I was kind of just surprised. I was like, wow, I must have really needed some sleep because I slept longer than expected, but I end up, doing my thing for the day, but later on I end up going to the beach because I want to watch the sunset. So I normally go to the beach around maybe around 4:50 or so. Uh, well, actually more recently around like 5:40 or something like that, because the sun would set at around like 6:20 before daylight savings. And I get to the beach and I'm sitting there, and I'm like waiting, and I actually get there at like 4:50 or something like that. So I'm like there for like an hour, just like walk around some, and then like go back and kind of just like watch, waiting for the sunset. And like 6:35 comes around, and I'm like, dude, what's going on? Like the sun's still high in the sky, and I'm freaking out. Like I didn't even realize what's happening. And I fortunately I immediately went to my phone and googled when daylight savings was, and it was the Sunday before. So I started freaking out, and it was kind of funny because I had this idea that I sprung up to a friend of mine. I was like, what would happen if like you went to bed and like the sun just never came up, like it never came back up, or like the sun just never went back down. How long would it take for people to start freaking out? Like would it be, you know 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I don't know. It's kind of crazy how like used to like the time of day we are. Just like with when the sun comes up and down, and how it'd be pretty crazy if it just never went down or just never came back up. It's it would say something. But anyway, with that, I guess I'll just kind of go into this. We have some new topics that was sent in. So thank you for those, by the way. But so these are the topics that are going into the box and maybe get pulled during this drawing, but um, probably not, because I actually forgot to put them in there now that I think about it. But these are the topics that will go into the box now that I remember. But seasons, and that's not just like the physical seasons that we have, like summer, spring, fall, winter, but the seasons that we have within ourselves. And I think that's like actually a critical topic. I mean, it's like a metaphor, I suppose, in some way. Like the seasons, we transition different parts within ourselves, like whether it's throughout our lives or in throughout a year. A lot of times like we feel different things throughout the course of a year, and that can be said to be seasons within ourselves. Another big topic is fear. I think that's something that's really big. I'm surprised that I don't already have that in the box, but fear is a big thing that kind of keeps us from pursuing a lot of things that we want to pursue. And I think it's important to kind of speak about that, and kind of delve into this topic that like we're all kind of plagued by in some extent. Expectations. there was that episode on social obligations, but expectation goes a lot further than expectations coming from outside of you. There are also expectations that we have within ourselves for the world around us, and a lot of times when we have those expectations, we will be letting ourselves down because, you know, uh, imagining the outcome of a situation is kind of like trying to see everything along that path of where you're trying to go, and you can't always expect that. But expectations, that's going to be a topic, and I think that's another good one. And social media, that's another one that we're all kind of enmeshed in. I mean, it's kind of like in some ways social media is part of our lives now. So the ways that it influences us, and there are so many psychological aspects that come into play when thinking about social media and the reasons why certain social medias are popular, and how it resonates with us. Like our actual physical body chemistry changes, like depending on how many likes we get, how many views or whatever it is. It's like there are actual endorphins that go off, and I'll talk more about that. But that's something interesting that I did learn in the program that I was in, about social media and just the way in which it interacts with us as people. So that's what that is. Those are the topics that will go into the box and will possibly be drawn and obviously spoken about at some point throughout the course of this podcast. But for the time being, I've got the box here with various topics in it, and yeah, we're gonna find out what the next week's topic is gonna be. And it looks like we have, oh shit, politics. Well, fuck. I mean, jeez. Politics. Okay. Yeah, that's. I don't know. I chose this topic. I don't know why I put this in there. I hate talking about politics, but it's something so critical, especially in this time now. And I'm not going to go into political differences in certain ways because I think that they're. I'll speak about that because I don't want to. I want to choose my words wisely when I'm speaking about politics, and I want to speak about the deeper meaning of politics because we wouldn't have a political system if it wasn't something that maybe was ingrained within us in some kind of way, or something that we wanted in some kind of way. So, and obviously that influences us in some kind of way, obviously, since it's persevering throughout the time that it has. So that's going to be an interesting topic. I kind of wish I didn't draw that, but it's already been done. So politics, expect that. Politics, that's going to be what that is. But today, the topic is dating/relationships, and I think I may just title this one as relationships because as we date, like whether it's for a brief interaction or something long term, it's relationships that are being built in some kind of way. So dating, relationships, and so that's what we're going to be speaking about today. And I guess I kind of like wanted to first bring this up as like, why do we date? Why do we bring that? And this kind of like goes into like why this is related to relationships in this way. I mean, obviously dating is related to relationships, but a lot of times we date just to have fun, just to get out of the house, just to do something. And yeah, that's perfectly fine. Sometimes it's just to meet new people, and of course that's a fun way to meet new people. I'm not sure how many friends come out of bad dates experiences, but maybe that's a thing. And also obviously to find lifelong spouses, to find some kind of significant relationship and start building something within that. So I feel like that's the main reason why people are dating now. I think there's too much time being allotted to other things like work and other responsibilities that dating has kind of become something that is more difficult to do. I mean, obviously there's online dating now, which came out in lieu of all of the obligations that we have in our lives that kind of keep us from socializing and interacting with other people as we do. And also, I mean, obviously like social media and technology that kind of keeps us distracted in some ways that kind of make it a little more difficult to meet people in public and kind of have conversation kind of organically as they used to happen. But of course, everything changes, and as we move through this new state of how we're dating and how we're moving and how we're building relationships, it's important to know like what exactly is the point of relationships, and what magnitude do relationships have, like in general. I mean, a lot of times we think relationships in the way of like intimate relationships, but we build relationships with everyone, like everyone that we interact with we have a relationship with, and hopefully we have a relationship with ourselves. But that's kind of what the beginning of this is going to speak about, that relationship that we have with ourselves, because I think that before we can go into relationships with other people, it's good to know about ourselves. I mean, like even from the beginning of building friendships in like kindergarten or whatever, it's like you know that you like, like a lunchbox with a cartoon character on, and it's like, oh, I like this cartoon character, and then you meet somebody with the same lunchbox, and you're like, oh wow, like we're friends because we have some similarities. So like that's even just like the basic understanding of like things that we like, and finding that connection through the things that we see other people, like that similarity that we see in other people. So um but it first starts with yourself. So building a better relationship with yourself, and I think that that is something that's so important. And I think that it's not something that we do enough of. And I'll start by just like speaking about what Google stated the definition of relationships as being. And there were multiple definitions, but this one was the most general, and I think that the one that connects to the most avenues of what relationships means. And that is that relationship is the state of being connected or related. And I don't really believe in using the base of a word in the definition, but they did that for some reason. But the state of being connected, and I think that that is something that's so essential to not only the external relationships that we have, but the internal relationship that we have with ourselves. And if we don't feel like we're connected to ourselves, and then how can we build that connection outside of us? How can we build connection on a deeper level if like that connection isn't fully there within ourselves? And again, it starts by building that better relationship with ourselves, that better connection with ourselves. And part of that is dealing with learning how to trust yourself. And a lot of times, there's so many times like I've had clients come in and speak about just feeling as though they're not able to trust themselves, not able to trust the decision that they just made, or like whatever action it is, or their own thoughts and things like that. And that can be so like discerning in many ways, like just not truly feeling as though you can trust your own decisions or your own thoughts or your own actions. And a lot of that is because we have these past experiences, these things that come up. And I've spoken about past experiences and how they can manipulate our present situations, and cause us not to feel as though we trust ourselves in these future steps that we're taking to better our lives. Like we're constantly changing, and I think that's something that we have to take into account as we're looking at these actions that we're making. We're constantly changing, and although we maybe made a decision in the past that we weren't happy with, we are no longer in that place. We're no longer that person, and we're no longer in that situation. And we have to tackle these past experiences, these past anxieties that are kind of holding us from the truth that we feel within ourselves, that we for some reason can't accept because of these experiences. So trusting yourself is going to not only allow you to build a better relationship with yourself, but allow you to extend yourself and move yourself into the lives, and connect with people in a more meaningful way, because now you're not second guessing. Now you're not regretting that decision, or looking at those past experiences as something that's going to manifest itself because you made this action. So, begin to trust yourself and build that trust within yourself by tackling the things that are combating that, making you feel as though you can't trust your own thoughts. And just think about that in itself. Like, these are things that are coming from you. These are actions that you feel within yourself, that you think within yourself, and anything that you create within yourself, you should validate and examine. Like, but always give validation, always give love, and always know that you can trust yourself, even if you're trusting yourself to develop more and grow more as a person, and make different decisions. Like, trust yourself in the things that you do, and that will allow you to build trust outside of yourself, and manifest those relationships in a bigger and more positive way. Also, be ready to go into relationships. It's like a lot of times, again, like those experiences that we deal with that we're holding on to in the past, like if we're not ready to go into a relationship or build a relationship, then we're going to be constantly triggered, like red flags constantly. And sometimes we even stay in those relationships that we're seeing those red flags. We saw them in the beginning, and then we continue to see, like, stay with this person or stay in these friendships or whatever it is, even though we're seeing these things that aren't really good for us and that we don't really want. But it's not until we, again, like, realize the things within ourselves that are causing these red flags to go up, that are causing these things within yourself to say, hey, wait a minute, like something isn't right here, and I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel like these people I'm surrounding myself with are moving me in a good direction. I don't feel like this person that I'm with is giving me the things that, like, I feel like I need for myself. And that's why these flags are coming up. That's why these negative emotions are coming up. But it's not until, again, like, we're ready to start pursuing those relationships and engaging in those ways that we, like, we have to be ready for that in order to go about them in a conscious way, in a way that we know that we are making the best moves for ourselves, and that if something does come up, then not only is it something that may be new to you, but it's also something that's identifying. Because if you've looked at all this other stuff, these things that are keeping you from building these connections or going into these relationships in a meaningful way, if you're identifying those and then you go out and start doing the things that you feel are good for you, and you're seeing other flags, like things that are coming up, then that's just a sign that, hey, now I'm identifying more parts of myself. And then I'm not saying that don't go into relationships or try to meet people or connect with people, like always try to connect with people, but do it when you're ready. Do it on your level, and do it in the place where you know that you're moving towards people and towards situations that are going to be the most beneficial for you. And that goes into just like having general self-awareness. It's like you have to know who you are. And I don't think a lot of times we even ask ourselves that questions, like, who am I? And it's one of the hardest questions for me to answer. Like, if you're in a job interview and someone says, tell me about yourself, and it's like, what do you want me to tell you? It's like, we have to really delve into those aspects. And a lot of times we don't know the words to say to express it, because we are so dynamic, and we're so, we're I was going to say different people, but we're not necessarily different people. We're all one person with all these different traits and all these different personalities and all these different the aspects of ourselves that come out in different ways. But it's the best thing is being aware of all those things, and knowing that those are all parts of you that you love and accept. And that's a theme that I'm going to stress so much, is love and acceptance of yourself and the things that you experience within yourself, because that's where we learn truth. Like, that's where we have truth, and that's where we gain solace and that peace within ourselves to engage in the world in a secure way, knowing that the world can't harm us because we have this impenetrable love for ourselves, and that can't be penetrated by, obviously, like, outside forces and things and people that are trying to change that. So that self-awareness, like, we need to know what we want. We need to know what we need out of a relationship, and that need isn't a need that comes from, like, I need to be fulfilled, or I need to find happiness. Like, if at any point we feel as though we're unhappy or we aren't fulfilled in some kind of way, we cannot expect that to come from anyone outside of ourselves. I repeat, if you are feeling like you are incomplete in some kind of way, do not look for that outside of yourself, because there is no one that can fulfill you more than yourself. And that can be so strange to hear in some kind of way, but we have to truly have that love and admiration for ourselves, because there's no one that's in our head, there's no one that's in our mind, there's no one that can put words to the thoughts that you can't even put words to, put words to the feelings that you can't even put words to. Only you can, and that means that you are the closest person, you're the closest person to yourself. So love yourself, love those aspects, love those thoughts, love those feelings, love those traits that you have, like, no matter how quirky or, whatever, however the world outside sees you, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it matters about how you see yourself, and that is the biggest part of self-awareness and building self-esteem. It's like, know your value, know that you are invaluable. Like you have so much value, and you need to understand that. And I hate using the word need and should and things like that, but it's like I feel that there's so much pain and sadness in people that don't realize how valuable they are. And it's like, and this goes for all people. It's like, understand your value, know and create the love that you have for yourself. I can't put that in any other way. Just like, know your value and create the love that you need to build security within yourself, and again, like, make that a security that's impenetrable, and that takes a lot of work. It's not something that's like that can just happen. I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, anything is possible, but it will take work, and it will take going into places that you may not want to go into. But if you have someone that you can work with, like a therapist or a friend, that like someone that you can confide in, not necessarily someone that's gonna tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do, but kind of just like someone to kind of like let out, because sometimes you just have to let things out. Sometimes, whether that's verbally or writing things down, but either way, build self-awareness in yourself, build love for yourself, because you can't look for others to make you feel good. And that's really just what that's all about. We also have to start, like, it's like there's that aspect of like building that self-awareness, but it can't happen without proper communication with ourselves. And I think that we so much focus on the communication that we have outside of ourselves, like to other people, that we don't really communicate with ourselves in a meaningful way. We're always communicating to ourselves in a way that's reflective of our outside experiences, which may be positive, but sometimes are negative. Um, Oftentimes we perceive more of the negative ones, and we hold on to more of those negative feelings, and that changes the way we communicate with ourselves. And how do we fulfill any type of relationship that we go into, or move in a way that we feel is right for us, if we can't even communicate our own desires with ourselves, or communicate within ourselves, like this person that's the most important person, and that's you. Like, it's like you have to value yourself and communicate with yourself in a way that is nurturing, in a way that's like embracing and encouraging you as a person. And as you gain more of a truth within yourself, as that language and that communication is flowing in the way that is meaningful for you, in the way that like shows love and respect and value, and you know aspirations, that aspirations for whatever it is, like, as long as you hold on to those and you create that communication within yourself that allows that dialogue to be possible, then now you're not only shaping a sphere of love and protection around yourself, but you're also communicating that and like reinforcing it with that communication, and now communicating through others, like not only through your words, but through your actions, through your movements. And something that's like very important to understand is that over 80% of our communication is nonverbal. Like, you can tell when a friend is down or something, or someone that's important in your life is like feeling a certain type of way, and you'll ask them, and you're like, hey, is everything okay? And they're like, yeah, everything's fine. But that the smile on their face doesn't mean anything. Like, it's a facade in a way. And you ask again, no, really, is everything okay? And then that person like tells you about this situation that's happened that they've been keeping to themselves. But like, when that person is expressing this sadness, or this sense of whatever it is, and they're showing this different experience physically, like a smile on their face or something, again, that's that idea of us showing our emotions more through our body language. So when you begin to have that communication within yourself and that love within yourself, you will naturally begin to move in the world in accordance to that, and it'll feel good. It'll be something that's more positive, and something that's more meaningful for you, and hopefully it'll attract the people that are meant to be in your life, and will resonate with that communication, that new communication that you have with yourself. Because again, like as we have that those negative experiences, those negative thoughts, those negative ways within ourselves, we're attracting those energies within our lives. Like it's causing those people to come into our lives. It's causing those situations to come into our lives because we haven't changed that dialogue. We haven't thought anything different about the way that it is, and therefore, like it's kind of like the world reflecting back, like the things that we're thinking within ourselves, and that can just be like my own conceptions about that. But changing that dialogue, it's something that, I mean, like whether you believe in the like attraction in that way as far as the things within coming without or whatever it is, that dialogue in itself will be healing in itself, and will allow you to build those relationships in a more meaningful way because you now again have that love for yourself. Understand your personal values is another thing that goes into that better understanding of yourself. It's like, what are the things that you value? What are the things that are meaningful for you? Like the things that when you go out into the world, because everyone's going to be thinking something different, everyone's going to be feeling something different, everyone's going to want something different. So what are your values in the way that when you interact with other people, you know what you want, you know what you value within yourself, and you know that like you don't want to compromise those, like kind of like your place of where it's like your bottom lines, like this is what I will not accept anything lower than this. I will not accept anything outside of this value that I have for myself or this value that I have in this situation. Because when we start compromising our values, that's when we start giving more than we're getting back. And it's not impossible to meet people and connect with people that are on your same level, that are meeting you at that place where you share value, you share that understanding, and you can create meaningful connection out of that. But until you know that value within yourself, then it's kind of like just things floating around in your head, like these feelings that are popping up because you keep going through these situations where your values are being compromised and things like that, but you can't put words to it because you haven't identified that. Like I spoke about with, I think it was the memories episode or the last episode, I don't even remember now, but speaking about essentially like learning about yourself more is kind of like digging, and once you realize that something is there, that's when you have the power to do something with it. But until you realize what your values are, until you realize what you truly want, then it's kind of just like floating around. It's kind of just this ambiguous space that we can't really pinpoint, and therefore we can't pinpoint it in our lives. We can't pinpoint it and see it in the people and the connections that we're having. We're just experiencing these things that are constantly causing us negative emotions or negative experiences or anxiety or lack of trust within ourselves. Whatever it is, it's we have to understand our true selves, and that means like even the parts of us that value certain things to a point where it's like these are uncompromisable, and I know within myself that these values are something meaningful for me, and like the people that are meant to connect with me will connect with me, and that's basically that. And going along with that is the fact that change is happening, and whether that's a change of the people around you or the change, like change is always happening. So as you begin to understand yourself, you're constantly changing. As you begin to understand yourself and move through the world, you're going to have different experiences and different people coming into your life, and be ready to accept that change. Like know that change is always happening. And even if you're in a relationship already, like I don't want this, none of this to, like obviously if you're in a relationship already, like there's like nothing that I'm saying that like necessarily maybe new to you, or maybe there are some things that are new to you, but these things aren't necessarily saying that if you're in a relationship, they don't apply. Even in relationships, we're constantly changing. We're constantly becoming new people. And when we meet each other at early stages in our lives, it's important to understand that not only are we changing constantly, but the people in our lives, our partner is changing constantly. And more often than not, we know this phrase, oh, you're not the person that I knew before. You're not the person that I started dating, or whatever it is. And that is true. They're not the person that you started dating. They're not the person that you used to know, and neither are you. I mean, obviously, like physically, you're still the same person, but I mean, even that physically, we're changing physically, and but mentally also, like as people, we're constantly understanding more about ourselves. We're understanding about our loves and hates, our passions, our wants and our desires, and that is changing us like within ourselves, and we need to understand that, like understand and accept not only that change within ourselves, because sometimes I think that change can allow us to, well, can cause us to kind of, or that lack of understanding that we're changing can cause us to feel again stuck in that place, like I spoke about last episode, like kind of feeling stuck in that way of, is this something that I would like because I didn't used to like it, and like we kind of get stuck in our ways, but we we kind of butt heads with ourselves in a way, because like it's kind of like, why would we think about that, or why would we think about wanting something if it wasn't something that was part of us, if it wasn't something that, you know, was meaningful for us. Like we wouldn't be wondering like, is this something I want, or is this something I should go for? It's, we wouldn't wonder it if it wasn't something that was a part of us. And of course we have to investigate that and discover like really what that means. But at the end of the day, it's like we are changing, and of course with that change comes changing of thoughts, changing of feelings, and changing of obviously the people around you. And as you understand yourself, maybe a change up of people is something that's different, and I mean something that can be so helpful. And like I again said in like the last episode of being stuck, a change of new people and a new environment can better move you into a place, and help you to realize that as you understand yourself, as you gain value in yourself and build that value in yourself, you can start building relationships with people that are on that same wavelength and on that same place, and love and accept you for that. And that will constantly happen throughout your life as you continue to move and develop. So I mean, I've obviously, like, you know, like this change is transitioning into that relationship of not only yourself but the relationship outside of yourself. So when we start moving outside of ourselves, when we're thinking about relationships, we have to understand that as we're doing this personal work for ourselves, as we're doing this this change for ourselves, creating this love for ourselves, all of it, like we need to understand that everyone is doing the same thing. Okay, or I mean everyone wants to do the same thing, everyone is trying to do the same thing. Well, everyone is doing the same thing, like whether we're consciously trying to change or we're just taking in life and changing as we go along, like whether we're aware of it or not, change is happening. So everyone is changing, everyone is changing in some kind of way. So um, it's important to know that we all want to be heard, we all want to be listened to, and we all want to matter in some kind of way. And if that's something that resonates with you, then know that it's what other people want as well. And going into the world, I think that that's something so critical to know. And as we're building relationships with people, that's something so important to know, because how do we go into a relationship if we're only expecting to get something in return? You know, it's like again, like if you're feeling unsatisfied or feeling unfulfilled, you will not find that in someone else, because other people are dealing with things themselves. So it's a place of gaining understanding in yourself and moving towards people in which there can be a balance and a cohesion in that way, where it's like you're both building and growing together, but also like very independently within yourselves. And know that that's okay, but know that all people are dealing with this type of thing, all people are wanting this in different ways. And it kind of brings me to this idea of I was recently uh, given or offered to do this meditation challenge with some friends, and it's been really amazing. This has only been day 12, I believe. This isn't day 12. It's day 12, and it's been something that's been, I don't know, so powerful in that sense. But there was something about an episode, and it was speaking about the aspect of the law of giving. And essentially, this is the idea that the easiest way to get what you want is to help others to get what they want and need to prosper. So helping others to get to that place that they want to go, getting other people to giving other people love, giving other people connection, giving other people these things that you want for yourself, and the stuff that you're giving to yourself. Like never give so much to other people that you're not giving to yourself. Or I mean, if you're giving love to other people, that's so amazing, but also don't forget to give that love to yourself. And that's something that's so important. We can give so much to the people outside of us, but we don't feel like we're getting that in return. And a lot of times, like, we have to realize that we deserve that. And once we realize we deserve that, then we start seeing that. We start seeing that in our environment. We start seeing that in the people. We start seeing that in the connections. And a mantra that was out of this meditation was, today and every day I give that which I want to receive. And I mean, obviously, you don't have to do this mantra, but I thought about that as I finished the meditation that day. And I was like, today I give that which I want to receive. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to give money or anything like that. It's like, maybe giving a smile, giving a warm conversation, or just like whatever it may be. It's like these small things, the things that we can give to the world. It's like, as we give that to the world and it brings us happiness and it brings them happiness, it starts to just radiate, and it moves and it transitions, and we begin building stronger and more healthy connections because we're putting out the things that we want for ourselves. And again, we can't put out the things we want for ourselves if we don't understand ourselves. So again, understand yourselves and build that relationship with yourselves. Another thing is, know that others desire and want similar things. It's like we all seek connection and love and things like that. And I think that's something that's important to understand as we go into relationships, and as we understand these things that are very common that other people have, like I spoke about in the last episode of universality. It's like we have these connections that allow us to realize that we're not alone in those experiences, and also with that, knowing that we're not alone in these experiences, know that, again, that very obvious realization that someone else is dealing with it. And as we go through different relationships, it's important to know that and move in that way. And part of moving that way is validating other people and validating their experiences, just as you would want to be validated. And I think that's different than just saying like, oh yeah, like that shit sucks kind of thing. But it's like, yeah, I understand. Like that's very valid, and that's part of our experiences. Like, you don't have to be in their shoes to know that you can walk with them in a way, and know that you're both walking towards that same kind of goal or that same kind of idea or whatever it is. But building those relationships starts with that validation of, validating their experiences, their feelings, their thoughts, and knowing that and hoping that will come back in return. And if that's something that you need in return, then, and you're not getting it in your relationships and you're constantly extending yourself, then obviously like start moving yourself in a way where it's like, I know that I'm not receiving that. And again, that's part of understanding yourself more. I know that I'm not receiving this thing that I really want to receive, but I'm not receiving that in my environment. So what do I do? Start, like that recognition is the start of you moving in that direction, you moving in that new place of surrounding yourself and connecting with people that are giving you that thing that you want. But again, as we move, like give that validation to other people because we would want that validation in ourselves. Another thing is negotiate. I put negotiate and compromise, but I'm kind of not really sure about the compromise part. But compromise on some level, a compromising as a shared connection to resolve an issue. So to negotiate essentially, and that's something that's so essential when whether we're in a friendship or we're in a relationship. There are a lot of times where we feel as though we are right and they are wrong, or whatever that case is. But the situation at hand is a situation that's outside of the relationship, and that's what it should always be seen as. It's a situation that's outside of the relationship. So as you work in a relationship and you value the other person, you value that connection, you value those true essence of what it is, then that situation just becomes that, and you can create a solution to it. Both of you can, like, or all of you, or however, whatever it is, like, can create a solution to that if you actively try and work towards doing that, or actively work with each other to do that. So it's part of just working with each other because, again, like, we both want similar things for ourselves, but obviously, like, in a partnership or in any type of relationship, we have to consider that there are other people that want things, and where can we negotiate some kind of middle ground that makes everyone happy, that makes everyone content, that allows us to focus back on the relationship itself and not this extraneous situation. Um, in order for any of those two things to happen, it's communication. Again, we spoke about that communication within yourself, but that verbal communication within that relationship, you have to communicate your needs, your thoughts, your feelings. Be open with yourself and, like, the people that you're building these relationships with, but also be open to listening to other people because, again, they want to be listened to. If you want to be listened to, then they want to be listened to as well. And maybe they're not the person that, like, will speak in the same way that you do, or verbalize or share their thoughts and feelings the same way that you do, and that's just part of building relationships and understanding about the person that you're with or the person that you're connecting with. But, like, that communication is key, and whatever way that you communicate, like, it's important to communicate those things because, again, like, no one's going to be in your head to know your thoughts and know your feelings. It's up to you. You can work through that in yourself and create that love within yourself, but unless you're communicating that to other people in those relationships, in those situations, then those deeper parts of you, those deeper values, those things that are meaningful for you, that you're feeling from day-to-day situation or in life in general, those things won't be communicated because you're not communicating them. So stay, like, keep that communication as something that's, like, the basis of how we start building all these connections. I mean, how do you even meet people without communicating, like saying hello or something like that? It's literally the beginning of any type of relationship. It's some kind of communication, whether it's eye contact or a smile. It's all communication in some kind of way. Um, and again, that just remember that change is constant. We can't expect everything to stay the same. So know that endeavoring in any kind of experience or relationship, if you value the person for who they are, like, just the essence of their energy, whatever it is, then also value the change that they're experiencing. Value that you're changing as well, and however you grow in those ways, like, don't hold animosity or anger towards the change that's happening. That's the change that's inevitable because, like, you wouldn't want someone to be upset because you're changing as well. Like, it's natural, it's part of life, and it can be very difficult, but it's something that's so, ingrained in everything that we do and everything that we are. So always just, like, know that change is possible, change is happening, and that relationship will not change. That relationship will not be the same, but as it changes, it can grow to be something bigger and better and more amazing. Or maybe you grow in separate ways, and as long as you're not holding animosity and you are valuing that change, then there will be no hard feelings as you remove yourself or as you start growing in different ways from these relationships, because both of you are understanding that change is so part of life, and just because you're changing in a way, obviously there are a lot of circumstances, so I'm gonna just kind of leave it at that point. Just, like, know that change is possible, know that changes, it's happening, and we should take that into consideration as we're moving through these relationships. And the last thing that I want to say is have realistic expectations of these relationships that you're wanting to have. Again, relationships will not fix the feeling that feeling that you're missing something in your life. You have to build that satisfaction in yourself. You have to build a healthy self-esteem, trust yourself, love yourself, and all of that has to come before you can expect that from others. Because how can anyone know how to love you if you don't know how to love yourself? That's just the end of that. And so that's what I'm going to say. I hope I didn't insult anyone's relationship as I spoke about that, but that's kind of just, things that I've seen as I've worked with clients dealing with relationships, or things that I've obviously read throughout the time in my program and worked through, and just different situations that have come up that have brought me to many of those different understandings and thoughts, and obviously personal experiences. But yeah, that I'm gonna end it there. So I wanted to end this on kind of a lighter note. So I went online and looked up some dating stories, bad dating stories, obviously, and thought I'd kind of share one or two with you. So this is from BuzzFeed. It's 22 First Date Horror Stories, BuzzFeed. So this one, it's titled "This Interesting Way of Communicating." So the story: I went to a movie I'd wanted to see with a guy I matched with on a dating app. When I greeted him in the front of the theater, he didn't say hi back. He meowed, like a cat. He wouldn't make eye contact either. I tried to make conversation as we walked to the right screen, but he just kept meowing and pointedly looking away from me. When we got inside, we found seats, and he continued to meow. After the movie, the meowing resumed. Still no eye contact either. Maybe he was trying to be quirky and endearing, but who does that? Who meows through a first date? This is kind of crazy, but also that last line, "Who meows through a first date?" I mean, what what date would anyone meow through a whole date? I'm not sure. I mean, maybe that's fine with her for a second date, but the first date it was not okay. Uh, this one is just like it's full of just like I mean, some pretty crazy stories. This one's called "This Plot Twist." I matched with a guy on a dating app. He was cute and well traveled, so I thought we'd get along. He told me he was such a bad kid growing up and that his mother had to send him to boarding school in the middle of the desert. But apparently, this was a good experience and got him on track because he went on to college where he became a heroin dealer. I can't understand how he was so confused as to why I didn't want to go on a second date, but becoming my standard for a good date after that became not a heroin dealer. So that's why I'm gonna go with that because of time and all that stuff. But uh, yeah, rate, review, subscribe. Thank you so much for everyone that's been sharing with friends and family, and I've really enjoyed all the support in that way. So yeah, please continue to rate, review, and subscribe highly. And yeah, if you want to email, send some topics, then everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can also go to the Instagram page and start following that, everything.sunpodcast, or follow on Twitter, every Sun Podcast, or you can join the Facebook group at Everything Under the Sun with Ty. So yeah, I hope you all enjoy, build happy and loving relationships, and love you all, and I will talk to you soon.